So Prabhupada had asked me to create some sample. He didn't say sample, he said, can you draw a picture of Lord Chaitanya? Obviously he wanted to see. So a few days later, after the marriage, and my wife, Rukmini, had brought in her paintings, and other paintings were there, Jarani's paintings, and Prabhupada would look at everything. And I did this drawing of Lord Chaitanya, which was not, in retrospect, it was, it was such a struggle. I of course I did it in, in an afternoon or whatever. I had some time and I devoted some time to it. But I thought, well, it was not finished. The figure of Lord Chaitanya was there, but everything else was just barely sketched in. But I had put in, everything I had into Lord Chaitanya's face and his expression and his attitude, whatever I understood to be right, to be put into the picture. And Prabhupada looked at other pieces of art, and mine was rolled up on the desk in front of him. And he looked at Rukmini's painting, and he appreciated, and he said, "That's nice." Or I don't know if he said anything at all. He was appreciating it. And then he noticed that there was this rolled up paper in front of him on the desk, and he said, "What is this?" And someone said, "It's a drawing by Bharadraj." And Prabhupada took it and he unrolled it. And as he was unrolling it from the top, I could see that he was looking at the first thing he saw was Lord Chaitanya's face. And as soon as he got to it, his eyes got big, really big. And Prabhupada's eyes were big to start with, but whenever he got excited about something, they'd like really, really expand. And then he unrolled some more, and then he got to the rest, and then finally, when he unrolled the whole picture, he had the biggest grin on his face. His face was just expanding, and his teeth were just showing. It was like his whole face it became like a sun, It was like he was shooting these rays, and he was looking at it and said, he said, "The husband is better."
After the press conference finished, an introduction to the devotees, I ordered a taxi, and then we got in a taxi. Myself, Prabhupada, Aravinda, and Shyam Sundar. And I was sitting on the left-hand side in the back seat, Prabhupada was sitting in the middle, and Aravinda was sitting on the right-hand side. So we started driving through the center of Paris. We went to a major place or crossroads called Le Concorde, which is a very, very prestigious place in Paris. And there you can see the Champs-Élysées going up to the Arc de Triomphe, and the obelisk, the Egyptian, Egyptian form that was brought to France by Napoleon. So at that time, Prabhupada asked me, at that time I asked Prabhupada a question, because I was always reading the Bhagavad Gita, and I was always writing down questions. If ever I would meet Prabhupada, I would ask him. So there was a lot of traffic, we were stuck in the traffic, and I asked Prabhupada, I said, "Prabhupada, what does this verse mean?" And the verse was that, Ya Nisa Sarvabhutanam, what is time of awakening for mass of men is nighttime for the sage, and what's time of awakening for the sage is nighttime for the mass of men. So I asked him, what does this verse mean? So he didn't, there was noise. So he said, what is that? And then Aravinda said, what does this verse mean? And Prabhupada said, oh yes, he says, he heard time of awakening. What does this verse mean? Prabhupada said, yes. He said, 4 o'clock. He said, all our devotees wake up 4 o'clock. And they take shower and go to Mangal Arati. So I said, I looked at Aravinda, and then he smiled, and he said, no, Prabhupada, what does this verse mean? Ya Nisa Sarvabhutanam. And Prabhupada started to smile, and he said, yes, he said, this means that when we see the karmis, we laugh. And when the karmis see us, they laugh. But our laugh is better. He said, we know that they are wrong. He said, they see us and they think that we're wasting our time chanting Hare Krishna. We see them, we know they're wasting their time in material life. But our laugh is best.
The first exhibit was completed miraculously in Prabhupada, and it was that year when all the devotees, the first time devotees came out in droves for the Gauranga festival, and it was a wonderful year, and Prabhupada came, and lo and behold, we actually completed an exhibit which was arranged in a kind of a horseshoe in front of the incomplete Mayapur temple at the time. So everything was like that, shacks, the exhibits were made in these bamboo shacks, and everything was like just barely kept together with some cow dung and arrowroot and twine, and but I thought, to this day, I think those are the most wonderful exhibits that we had created. There was such vibrant, raw energy, real wonderful. And so we started. At one end. We actually started somehow. I wasn't there. I missed the beginning. I was, preparing something and getting things ready, and the tour, Prabhupada's tour, had started. It was his first time of seeing the exhibit, and all these devotees were there. So I'm running, to try to catch up, and so they started it backwards, started at the wrong end, and going backwards from the end to the beginning. The beginning exhibit was my work, and one of the end exhibits was Rukmini's work. Not the end exhibit, but one of the last ones. And after the first or last exhibit, Prabhupada moved on, and he came to the exhibit that Rukmini had done, which was wonderful. It showed it was an exhibit of Lord Chaitanya in fainting ecstasy in front of the Jagannath Murti, Jagannath, Subhadra, and Balaram. And Lord Chaitanya was like a stick in this transcendental, ecstatic condition. And Prabhupada looked at it, and you could tell he was drinking the nectar and that he was affected by it very much. And he said, "Who has made this?" And by that time I had caught up, with the procession, and I said, "Rukmini, my wife, has made this." Prabhupada said, "Very, very good." So then slowly moved on to the next thing, came around, and finally came to the last exhibit, which is my exhibit. And it was an exhibit of Prahlad, of Nrsingadev tearing Hiranyakashipu, and Prahlad standing there and offering him prayers. I think a picture of that exhibit actually made it into the songbook, one of the early publications. And Prabhupada looked at it and said, "Well, who has made this?" I said, "This is my work, Srila Prabhupada." He said, "You still have some learning to do." He said, "This is not yet perfect. The wife is better, I think."
So we're back in the tent in the Kumbh Mela, and so Prabhupada says, Krishna is God by the ecstasy. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. So many, many years later, I'm talking about 7 or 8 years later, we're in Philadelphia on a morning walk. Prabhupada says, he stops, everybody stops. How do we know Krishna is God? So I let a few people say this and that, and nobody knew. I said, because we feel the ecstasy, we feel the nectar. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. He says, no, because the Bhagavad Gita says it. So I said, but Prabhupada, you said, and by that time he's down the way he's walking. So it was one of those seeming contradictions that didn't contradict because it's transcendental.
At one stage, we literally had no manpower because Western devotees, somehow I never got sick in India, whereas everybody else, would go fat and come back skinny. I went skinny and came back fat. But in Bombay, there were very few devotees at Hare Krishna land. There was a lot of work to do, and Tamal Krishna, who was the GBC, was discussing with Prabhupada what to do. And I was just a brahmachari, an insignificant brahmachari. I was, doing a little preaching, going out on life membership. And so for some reason or another, Prabhupada called me into his room when Tamal was there and, asked me, Sridhar, what should we do? What can we do? These are the problems. He'd ask me. I was flabbergasted. I thought, well, I'll try to work harder, Prabhupada. I didn't know what to say. So it was bewildering.